Warcraft's latest additions are wild and secretive. The Haranir featured prominently in the cinematic trailer that led us to the War Within. But once the game launched, many found themselves surprised, myself included, that they had barely any presence. We do meet them in Azj-Kahet, giving us a glimpse into their lives. But what this does mean is that as we progress further into the expansion, we can expect to see a whole lot more of them. So let's have a look at what we do know so far, and maybe just speculate on what the future may hold. As I mentioned, we first meet the Haranir as we make our descent into Azj-Kahet. Oweyna is their leader, and their only member to be named to us so far. It is revealed to us that she has led a group of her people there in order to safeguard the Great Roots. But it quickly becomes apparent that her willingness to work with strangers does not go down well with the others. The Haranir and their practices are both secretive and sacred. They are bound by oaths, ones which forbid them to reveal themselves, even if it was to protect the great roots that they so revere. They must remain hidden and out of sight. It appears all Haranir wield nature magic to some degree. They all appear to be able to shapeshift into other forms, something akin to druidic shapeshifting. They are able to remain in these forms as much as possible, as in to hide themselves from any outsiders. They are so careful, it seems to border on paranoia. They use specially crafted scythes in order to clear any traces of their magic, to make sure it appeared as though they were never there. From what interactions we do have with them, the Haranir seem well intentioned. They genuinely care for the well-being of Azeroth, and while we do not know the purpose of the great roots of which they protect, at least for now their goals align with ours. And really, this is all we know for sure, while as I said it really isn't a whole lot to go on, but there is definitely a lot to infer or speculate on, most of which I think can be safe bets. The first and often most striking feature of the Haranir is the way they look. They have similarities, not only between the trolls, but also the night elves. Ever since their early reveals, people have called out how they look like the dark trolls would look mid-evolution. This is of course with the exception of the quills that seem to be present on each of them. The fur is definitely a troll trait. Although not rendered in game, it is known that some trolls do have a fine layer of fur. But I feel that the quills explain almost perfectly who the Haranir were once, and what happened to them. It was during the early ancient days of Azeroth, after the Troll and Aekir wars, a small faction of those trolls broke away from the larger clans and settled in the heart of the great continent of Kalimdor, calling themselves the Dark Trolls, vowing to live more in harmony with nature. These trolls, being in closer proximity to the power of the Well of Eternity, had an accelerated evolution, being altered and ordered by the arcane energies into what we now know as the Kaldorei. But some of the Dark Trolls stayed underground, particularly in a series of great underground caves beneath the sacred groves of Mount Hyal, the dwelling place of the Wild Gods, which they worshipped as the Lower. One of the most prominent and powerful of these wild gods was Agamagan, a giant quilled boar. The great and noble boar was one of many that rallied to the defense of the world when the War of the Ancients began, and while he destroyed countless demons, he was eventually felled on the battlefield. From his body grew giant thorns in an area we today know as the Barrens. From those thorns came a new race, the Quillboar, the only other race we know of that sports quills on their body. This will become even more relevant soon, so hold on to this. Of all the trolls that lived beneath the sacred grove of the Lower and directly worshipped Agamagan, we know there was the Shadowtooth clan. They fought in the War of the Ancients, and even remained underground in their cave networks after Illidan created the second Well of Eternity, and Nordrassil was planted to seal it. For countless thousands of years we did not hear from them again. The next time we get any information was during Cataclysm, when it was presumed they had been wiped out by the invasion of the Twilight Hammer cult in the region, something that was later confirmed by scant few survivors that now reside in the city of Drazar Alor. But if you were trying to disappear, what greater way than to have the entire world think you had already died out, leaving no trace? So prepare a little bit for some tinfoil hat, and here is my theory on what I think really happened, and the connection between the Dark Trolls and the Haranir. The Dark Trolls that lived in harmony with the Wild Gods saw what happened to their kin, as the arcane magic of the Well of Eternity warped and changed them, how they became haughty, and used this newfound power to build an empire and aggressively expand. The only reason their lands were untouched was the Wild Gods were still to be feared. The power grew to be an all-consuming addiction, one in which invited the destructions of their world in the form of a demon invasion, which saw the once pristine continent of Kalimdor sundered. This same war would claim the life of their most revered lower, Agamagan. But to these trolls, death is not the end, and as such they would perform rituals that would allow them to commune with his spirit still. Now free from the ancient bonds, he would begin to teach these dark trolls many things about the great cycle, and some hidden truths. He told them of ages past, when the Titans took a piece of the dream and ordered it, using a construct Nimue to enforce their will from it, and binding the Wild Gods to its purpose. That their creations could not be trusted either, as they saw the wilds of life as uncontrolled chaos, just as Amanthul did. He would teach them a great truth, how their belief that their goddess Elune dwelled within the water of the Well of Eternity was actually another, a sleeping goddess, the Earth Mother Azeroth, from which life sprang forth. That other forces may yet come to claim her while she slumbers, as the Titans and the Dark Ones did before. That the roots were there to allow life and nature the foothold it needed, that they were to be protected above all else. Over the years, once again in proximity to a second Well of Eternity, they began to see the effects in themselves, the same changes that had begun in their kin. They were fearful they were treading the same path. They were instead offered a home within the dream, as long as they swore an oath, one to protect the cycle of life and see it flourish. This oath would require them to disappear entirely, for the other races to forget, but they could not be trusted. In turn, they would be taught the ancient magic by the spirit of the Great Boar. Over time they would be altered once again. This time, as their connection to the magic of nature deepened, they were greatly empowered, just as we have seen in Malfurion. They mastered the magic of root and thorn. Their eyes changed to dazzling hues of blues and greens, and quills sprouted from their hair. They watched with great interest as the turbulent changes wrecked their home, all the while having to stay hidden, working in secret to protect the natural order where they could. It is only now one elder, Oweyna, that has decided to break this ancient oath. She has heard the call of the world soul, and it has pushed her to break her most sacred tenet, to trust in an outsider for the first time and reveal herself. For what purpose she cannot yet say, but she knows that the only way to know is to follow the call of the Radiant Song. The timing really makes sense, as well as their connection to the Bloodthorn magic and the Quillbore. It has the potential to lead us deeper into the realm of life in the future, and not just the ordered portion of it. Also, more exploration into the Quillbore and the Great Thorns is really long overdue. It looks like next patch we should be getting the first major breadcrumbs in the future Haranir story. But I want to know what you think. Do you think this is plausible? Or maybe you have a theory of your own? always love to hear it. You can leave it in the comments or come tell me on the Discord. But if you liked the video, it would really mean a lot if you could leave a like or a subscribe. And next time we'll be going into a really big deep dive on goblin cartels ready for the next patch. Oh, and don't forget to come back. Anytime.